Hello, ladies, gents, and long-suffering babysitters. I always forget to hit that record button when I work on these thumbnails, but this time I did not forget, so I figured let's do it. Let's do that speed paint. I hope that I always do it every time now that I dedicate some time to create another thumbnail or whatever other piece of art that I endeavor to make for whatever goofy nonsense I am up to the next time. So here is the thumbnail for the team up of Gimpy and Paco. I am pretty terrible at drawing the line art without a little bit of a sketch, so you'll see me toggling back and forth, going back to the low opacity layer to make sure that I get the layout of the painting between quotes correctly. Like, I tried several things, like, do I want him to be like struggling with the hand sound and stuff, but now he's going to be way more passive. I wanted him to be kind of like a dead weight, but he's kind of having a good time, suffering but having a good time. That is my general purpose. I tried to use the head that I had drawn for the way that Gimpy for the actual character to work out, but of course it does not match with the orientation, so I just figure, I'll just draw the whole thing from scratch, even though it'll take a little bit longer. It took about a little over 3 hours to draw this. It is playing right now about a 20 times speed. And I've always enjoyed watching other people speed paint, so here it is. So something that you might like. Here it is, getting a little bit of reference, make sure that I get everything correct about the character. I have a hard time. I have a very hard time with that, making some clean line art that I can use for coloring. And the thing that I've been trying to balance is just how much time do I need to spend doing it versus how good I want it to look. I have been spending far longer than I think should be necessary for this quality of a painting. You know, the usual saying of people that say something is not a painting or a piece of art is never finished, just abandoned. That is very much true with the thumbnails that I make. I am like, this is good enough. I just want to get it to, this is good enough, something that I feel is acceptable, and then I go a bit further because I can't help myself. I'm still working on it. Like, for a while I'm like, you know what, I could leave it here, but I'm going to keep going to make it look a little bit nicer. Here's the sketching again on that low opacity layer, making sure that the layout is all right. I had a lot of struggle trying to get this pose correctly. It is a lot of it is seat of my pants. Like, I don't really plan. I had nothing planned. I just wanted the pose of Gimpy being on the floor with Paco dragging it, and the rest of it kind of came together as I went. The layout was not terribly planned whatsoever. Of course, hands, always a big struggle. They are a pain in the butt. I try not to shy away from drawing whatever I need to draw it, and if you don't throw yourself at it, if you don't try to make it happen, then it's just not going to happen. In the sense of, if you don't force yourself to draw something that you struggle with, how the hell are you going to get better at it? So I'm like, this hand is prominent in there. It's not looking amazing, but I'm going to, at the very least, make it look that something that at least looks like somewhat of a hand that I can accept as a believable object in this world. There goes the coloring. It's something that I really appreciate, is the tool to fill up colors like in shapes. It is hard to explain. It's the one that you see me use down there is highlighted on the lower right corner. So a tool that I didn't even know existed until very recently. I've been watching a lot of people paint online to try to improve a little bit, get all those flats in there. You gotta grab that reference to get the colors right. Use the same colors every time. Something that I wish I had used reference for is the flag. It does not look like anything inside the game. I just made it up as I went. I should have just looked at the one in the game and made it the way that it looks in the game, but I figured it was not all that important, so I didn't even bother. After the flats, you do the shadows in a thing to define the shapes of everything, give everything a nice volumetric feel. It's probably my most enjoyable part of any kind of coloring procedure. I normally just go straight to colors. I don't bother with values. Values is basically saying painting in black and white first, do all the shadows first, and then you put the color on. I like to just go straight to colors. It's especially for very cartoonish, colorful thumbnails like this. I'm like, why bother with the whole black and white shadows? I'm just going to go straight to all the colors and make it look acceptable in that regard. And something I really appreciate about the color process is it allows me to be lazy about the line art for hands and stuff like that, because it's so much easier to define the shadows and the highlights in the color scheme without having to have very solid line work. Which is not to say that you should skimp on it. You should always try to have some solid line work to work with. Something I really need to improve, though, is the cleanliness of it. You see all these jagged edges and all that stuff. It's maybe just a choice of brush or something that I don't really like the look of. So maybe I should just spend some time trying to get my line work right. But, you know, again, the compromise is the time that I want to spend versus how good I want it to look. I'm not going to go absolutely insane trying to make everything look super duper nice. I just want it to look acceptable for what I have inside my head. And something I very much have been trying to do as well is just change the composition so it's a little bit more dynamic. It's the camera, the position and all that stuff. It's like you have the Gimpy in the foreground and you got Paco leaning back. It's not something that is all static. They're not just standing there looking stupid or anything like that. It's more involved in whatever the scenery is supposed to be. Here I am just doing a little bit of blending for things that need a little bit more volume. I wasn't going to do it with everything, just materials that are kind of cloth-like. If you notice later, the shirt is not going to get this treatment. It's just going to be left because I felt like it's kind of like a silken shirt, so it's not going to get that blending effect. It's more high contrast type of material. So there you have it. There you have it. The process has been ironed out through several different iterations. Like I start with a line art. Well, first this sketch, I go back and forth with this sketch, then put the solid black lines on top. Then you go flats, then you go underneath the line art still to do the shadows, and still underneath the line art you do the highlights. And then after that, on top of everything, you put another layer of color above the line art so that you may want to change the width of the black lines and make it look nicer. The background is always improvisation. I just go like, what background does it go? Let's make a texture. This is going to be a mine's wall. And I'm going to try and make it look like a mine's wall. I just struggle through it, try to make it happen. Sometimes I succeed, sometimes I fail. I think this one turned out okay. And I had like no plan whatsoever. It looked kind of bland, so let's put a little bit of gold nuggets into the wall. I'm not going to spend a ton of time into it because it's going to actually be obscured with the title and all that stuff. So just a little bit of detail to point out that this is a mines environment. And then this is the last step that I normally do. Put the lighting, whatever the light is coming from, which is now from the left. So I'm going to put in all those, the 50% opacity shadows on top of everything. I really like this tool to do it. It's very fast, and it gives the entire image a much sharper look. All the high contrast. You want high. I really enjoy. I don't say let's say I really enjoy paintings with very high contrast shadows and stuff like that. So I've been trying to embrace that more and more. And then the background, this is also completely improvised. Like, what the hell is he looking at? I have no idea. Oh, let's make it so that he's dragging Gimpy to the altar. Of course, that was a bit of inspiration there. I felt pretty good. Let's give Callie some shiny eyes and a bloody altar, and we'll call it a day. Try to make it look real nice and shiny and menacing back there in the distance. Something I should have done is add a little bit of blur for Callie's image, so if it looks like it's the, there's that anisotropic filtering kind of effect of something in the distance is a little blurred, so that it is out of focus. That should have been the last thing that I did there, but I didn't. It's all good enough. It's all good enough. That is my entire philosophy with the thumbnails. Is just do something good enough. It looks nice, and I often then later try to. There will be small changes. You can see a few small changes with the final version, because I put it on YouTube, and then I look at how tiny it looks, and then it's it needs this effect. It might need this other thing. This one didn't change much, but often I have to re-zoom or move things around a little bit so it looks okay from a distance on a tiny little box in that thumbnail. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed this speed paint. I was debating to do commentary or just let you watch it with some music or something. I figured I will just talk about it while we watch it unfold. Hopefully you enjoyed it. See you in the next one. Until then, don't let Gimpy die.